Welcome to the Founders Code, the most authentic podcast for startup founders. I'm Shamil, founder at Fluid Labs, and here's the question that keeps me up at night. Why do we as founders willingly walk into chaos? The stress, the self-doubt, the endless decisions, and still we keep jumping back into the game. If you've ever asked yourself why, or just want to hear what it's really like behind those polished LinkedIn posts, you've come to the right place. This is a space for real, vulnerable, and honest conversations with founders who've been through the fire and are still climbing. Let's get into it. Hello, everyone. Today's guest is one of those rare people who's lived multiple lifetimes. From being in the studio with 50 Cent and Christina Aguilera and writing music with Nicki Minaj and Kylie Minogue, to working on deals at Goldman Sachs, to then having raised over 75 million for his fast-scaling healthcare startup after seeing the cracks in the system firsthand. But this episode isn't about titles or companies. It's about who you become when you lose everything you thought you wanted and realize that the dream you were chasing was never really yours. John Fontein has built, lost, reinvented, and reconnected with purpose in a way that most people never do. And today's you'll hear about that journey. The depression, the pivot, the heartbreak, the reinvention, and how all of it somehow led to exactly where he was meant to be. John, I'm excited for this one.
What's up, man? I'm excited too. I'm really glad I'm able to share my story with you today.
So cool. Can we start with what in your childhood, what do you think their success would look like and feel like?
Oh man, my childhood depends on how far back we're going. So I would say there was a pivotal moment for me in, you're gonna laugh, but in high school where we had a talent show and I did a rap in front of the whole school. And it was the coolest moment of my life. I did this rap. It was probably terrible, but everybody, seemingly loved it. And they were cheering my name afterwards, like, "Oh, John." And that was the biggest adrenaline rush that I think I've ever felt in my life up until that point. And so to answer the question, I think that was kind of the weird childhood trauma, if you may, moment of me thinking, oh, this is what success is. It's when you feel this adrenaline rush of people screaming your name. They're screaming, "John, John." And so this is what I want to do as a career, whatever that is. This is it. This is success to me, is I think the beginning of my pursuit of that weird feeling. I've thought about this. It's a weird childhood trauma that I think has driven a lot of things in my life.
And how did you navigate between actually producing, writing music to actually performing? Have you tried moving the performance direction?
So no. So ironically, I think that is also the moment I realized, wow, I'm a terrible performer. I never want to do this again. So I was in this weird position of, oh wow, I love this feeling, but also I'm a terrible, terrible performer. And so that was, I think, my first and only historical rap performance in my career.
And how old were you when you started working on music?
So I've done music my entire life. I did it growing up. I played classical piano, classical violin. And I did music my whole life. And it was actually in high school was the first time where I actually started to write my own songs. And then I got really serious with, it's called producing, but essentially producing, call it beats, like hip hop beats. In my junior and senior years of high school, in my last years, this was the heyday of, I was in New York. This was like the heyday of 90s hip hop in New York. And so I really got into producing beats towards the end of my high school.
Can you bring us to the moment of how did you end up being in the studio with 50 Cent? Is it like every boy's dream who wishes to go into the music direction?
Yeah. So let me maybe tell you tell you my story of how this all began. I think the punchline to my story is I'm doing exactly what I want to do, and there's no way that I would have ever guessed that this is what I wanted to do. There's a famous Steve Jobs quote, which is, "You can't connect the dots looking forward; you can only connect them looking backwards." And my life and my career is truly a representation of that. So let me walk you through how I got to where I currently am. when I was, so as I said, in high school, I got really into music, into producing. I did it all through, the first 2 years at college. And my junior year, prior to my junior year of college, I came back to my parents. It was summer break, and I was living with my parents at the time, and I was just focused on writing music. I didn't really know where it was going to go, but I was just focused on writing music. And my upstairs neighbor, I'd lived in the same building for the majority of my life. And my upstairs neighbor, who I was friendly with, for the last 10 years, asked how my summer was going. And I told her, great, I was writing music, and I was writing my own songs, producing some music. Didn't know where it was going to go, but I was hoping it would amount to something. She took interest, and she said, oh, I'd love to, you should come upstairs. I'd never been to her house before. She said, you should come upstairs. I was in the music industry before. I'd love to hear some of your songs. So I go upstairs. By the way, this is somebody that I've known for a decade. I go upstairs to her house. She has platinum and gold plaques all over her wall. And it turns out that she was an early executive at Interscope Records. She was really good friends with Jimmy Iovine. And so I was like, wow, this is insane. First of all, I'd never seen a platinum or gold plaque in my life. And so I was like, here's my demo tape that I'm working on right now. And she said, great, this sounds great. Let me send it to Jimmy. First of all, I have no idea who Jimmy is at this point. I'm a naive kid in college who's just, with headphones making his own beats.
So like 14, 15 at the time.
Correct. Age is but a number. But so I have no idea who Jimmy is. It's Jimmy Iovine. He's the CEO of Interscope Records. Turns out she was his early business partner. And I say, great, I don't know who Jimmy is, but feel free to send him my tape. And so the next morning she calls. It's like super early in the morning. Yeah, I probably woke up at noon. Always, so it's like 10 a.m., which is like the earliest I've ever woken up. And she said, I sent it to Jimmy. He loves it. He just loves it. And he wants you to fly out to LA. And if I've never been to LA at this point, I grew up, born and raised in Brooklyn. So I said, okay, hold on, Janet. Who the fuck is Jimmy? Why do I need to go to LA? What's going on? And so she's like, oh, let me explain to you. Jimmy is the CEO of Interscope Records. And I was like, oh my God, I know. Of course I know Interscope. This is like the Dr. Dre, Eminem, 50 Cent heydays. And she says, I was his business partner early on, and he'd love to fly you out. So I get on the flight, first time flying to Santa Monica ever in my life. And I'm at Interscope Records like the next day. By the way, this is 20 plus years before, so I might get some of the details wrong, but this is how I remember it. Is I get to the main Interscope office, and people are like pointing at me. Again, I probably got the details wrong. I'm like, oh my God, this is that feeling that I've been waiting for, that high school feeling of like the adrenaline rush. I'm like, dude, I'm the man. I got this. And so this guy comes out, and he's like, hey, I'm Jimmy. And I'm like, I'm John. And he said, I listened to your tape. I loved it. And I was like, thanks. And he's like, and Curtis loved it too. And I was like, who the fuck is Curtis? And he's like, oh, that's 50 Cent. And I'm like, holy shit, this is serious. And he's like, it just happened so fast. And so he's like, so we'd love to sign you. And I'm like, what? Like, what is going on? This is happening so fast. I have no idea what I'm doing. And at the same time, I'm still in college. I'm a sophomore in college. And I was so proud that I was attending Princeton University. So I distinctly remember telling him, with pride, whoa. Like, I go to Princeton, so I can't just drop everything for you, like, sir. Which was, in hindsight, such a terrible idea. And there was like awkward moment where he probably thought, like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy?
Is he joking?
Yeah, but I was like, I was so proud of myself for attending Princeton University. Which,
you got
who cares?
Straight.
But who cares? It's such a big regret. I should have just said, I'm in. I'm all in. I'll leave school immediately. But regardless, he says, we got to work together. There's a 50 Cent movie, coming out soon. This was the Get Rich or Die Trying movie. And he's like, here's your A&R. Here's your manager. Come to the session later tonight. And I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. This is crazy, but let me go through with it. And so, I meet with my A&R for the first time at Interscope. I'm like, wow, I need a manager. So I meet with a couple of folks there who will be my prospective managers. One of them is Christina Aguilera's husband, at the time, Jordan Bratman. And it's a whirlwind of chaos. I go into the studio later that night. And this guy Polo Dodon is there with it was actually with Nelly Furtado making the song Glamorous. At the time, we were making it for Nelly Furtado. He ultimately changed it and it went to Fergie. But I was in that session. I was like, this is crazy. This is so cool. And also, I go to Princeton, so I got to go back to school and really focus on my academics. But so I walked away from this thinking, oh my God, I have a record deal. I ultimately signed a management deal as well. And so I'm like, I have a manager, I have a record deal. It's that feeling I've been looking for. I'm the king. I am the man. Like nobody can mess with me. I have a record deal. I felt so cool. So I go back to campus and obviously school starts, but I'm feeling amazing. I'm like, I'm the man. I have a record deal. What do you have? You have nothing. You just have good grades. I have good grades and a record deal.
All the girls are yours.
Oh my, it's the greatest feeling. I'm like, I am the man. I'm the
just
best.
With 50 Cent the weekend.
Correct. Yeah. It's like you're eating, coffee with your friends. I had coffee with Jordan Bratman. And so anyway, it's just terrible. It was so bad. But what happened was I was so, high on my own success that I hadn't even had that I wasn't actually putting in the hours. And so what I didn't realize at the time was I had to be grinding and putting in the hours, and they expected me to send them song after song to be taken into consideration for this movie. And I wasn't doing that, right? I was like, whoa, I have a record deal. I can send you like 1 or 2 songs. I'll tell you when I'm done with my music. Not the case at all, right? And I actually realize this now, and I have no animosity towards anybody in the music industry or who was on my team at the time. I just wasn't putting in the hours. It's just like, and I think using an analogy now, we'll probably get into it. In tech entrepreneurship, like people make a huge thing about raising money. It doesn't matter if you raise money or venture funding. You actually have to execute and then deliver and build a product. And a lot of people, celebrate, oh, we raised money. That's amazing. We won. That's just part of the whole journey, right? And so you actually have to then put in the work, and that's where the real work begins. I didn't realize it. I didn't realize that after, getting the record deal is just the entrance fee. Once you get that, you actually have to put in the hours. You actually have to perfect your craft, deliver on that. Otherwise, you're just you're a decoration on their Christmas tree, and they have a lot of decorations. And so that is, ultimately what happened is I just didn't put in the time or hours. It's also because I was spread so thin. I was doing this music thing. I was at school. I was just spread so thin. I should have gone all in at that moment, or at least that's what I thought at the time. And so long story short, I get dropped from the label. They shelve all the songs that I did with 50 Cent for the movie. Nobody's picking up my call anymore. I'm like, oh, dude, this is over. Like, what just happened? I had everything in the palm of my hands.
15 years just ruined all the
50, vapid, just disappeared, gone. And at the time, again, I was young. I was probably 19. I can't remember my exact age, but I also don't have the emotional mechanisms to deal with this amount of rejection, because I've never been rejected as very few, other than from girls, which many rejected me, by the way. But to this degree, I had never been rejected. This was the biggest rejection I had suffered. And so I just don't think I had the emotional wherewithal to deal with this stress. And so I think naturally what happened was I was in a very, very dark place. I was like, I hate music. I don't want to ever do this again. So I'm a failure.
The highest of highs, at 15 years old. I don't know,
dude. You don't understand. The highest of highs isn't even close to describing how good this was.
Because this is crazy. This is something that a lot of young music artists, they work years for, 5-10 years at posting consistently to their feeds, writing music, performing on the street, to then getting the chance to be seen. And you've kind of had that straight away.
All in 18 years. And so that being said, I had done music my whole life. So in a sense, this was, everything that my life at the time I thought was building up to. I thought that was right. I thought that was what I was going to do. This was it. I thought this was going to be my career. As I mentioned, I was feeling that adrenaline rush that I felt. I thought everything in my life, the 18 years were building up to that moment, and it all crumbled just so quickly. By the way, when it ends, it ends. I mean, it's not it was slowly. It's just nobody picks up your call. You're done. That period, full stop. And when people don't pick up your call, it's really over, because then you're just sitting alone in your room, with headphones on, making songs. You're like, I don't even know who I'm supposed to send this to. And so it evaporated just like that. And so I'm lost. I have no idea what to do. And everything that I thought I was going to do with my life has now ended. And so I think the natural thing, I'm in a dark place to do when you're in a dark place, is to say, fuck it, let me just do the safe thing. Let me do what everybody else is doing. I thought I was this special, star, but I'm not. I'm a nobody, and I just want to be, do what everybody else is doing. Let me take the safe route. In school, that safe route was either taking a job in investment banking or consulting. And so I interviewed at a bunch of places, and I ultimately got a job with Goldman Sachs in banking.
And can I just stop you for a second? With all of that situation, when you were 15, what were your parents saying?
They think I'm crazy, right? So they think I'm crazy because I'm going to be a superstar music person. And then when I get there, they think I'm crazy because that's all I said I wanted to do, but suddenly I'm not actually doing it, right? Suddenly I'm saying, well, you know what? I got this school thing going on too, so I think I'm going to do both. And then they also think I'm crazy because after I was dropped from the label, instead of saying, you know what, let me get back up and let me do it again, I was just knocked out, right? It's the typical saying of, if you get knocked down on your knee, you got to get right back up and go at it again. But I didn't. I just gave up. I was like, nope, I'm done. I'm on my knee, and you know what? I'm not even going to play this game.
So was there
nobody
who thought, okay, this kid's 15 years old. We need to handhold him, show him, explain what this is, what he's getting himself into. It's not like he had 30 years of experience in the industry.
No, but I also, I think trial by fire. So that's correct. I had nobody, but I also think trial by fire is a great thing, right? As in, I was in that situation. I had to manage it myself. Had I been handheld the whole way, I don't even think I would have gotten there anyway, because this was all just trial by fire. Let me figure this all out by myself. But I think the other thing that happened was, I and a lot of driven people are super, super competitive. And I was super competitive in trying to get this deal. And the moment I decided, you know what, I don't want to do music anymore, then I got super competitive to do the next thing, which was to get a consulting or job in finance, which, by the way, I couldn't care less about. But it was just that rush of, I don't want this guy to get the job ahead of me. I want to get that. And so just the competitive instincts kick in. And then I realize in my life too, frequently looking back, that so often I was competing in somebody else's game, right? And rather than playing my own game. And so specifically in this instance, I just got really competitive and thought, okay, I need to bust my butt off, and I need to get the best job at the best firm because I'm competitive and I want to feel that silly adrenaline rush feeling again. And so I start my career at GS. This is, by the way, 2008. So it's during the financial crisis. I had I'm not a finance guy. I had no idea what was going on. And the world is ending, as you probably remember, during the financial crisis. Companies are going down. I literally start my career as there are layoffs happening at the firm. And Lehman Brothers is shutting down, and people are walking out with cardboard boxes crying. But I have no idea because I have never done this before. And so I'm like, I guess this is what finance is like. Everybody cries. There's layoffs happening every day. People cry. God, this is terrible. This is brutal,
stressful.
And so I'm like, oh God, I can't not work, because if I stop working, then I might get fired. I have no idea about it because there's layoffs happening every day. Mm-hmm. And then so there was this weird moment. It's I just got to work every day. I can never stop working because I don't want to get fired, because I don't want to be the loser that gets fired. So I'm just going to work every day for 20 hours. Because I think this is what happens in finance, is on a daily or a weekly basis, there's mass layoffs that happen. So anyway, I'm in this silly job. I shouldn't say silly. It's a great firm, but I'm terrible at the job. But I'm in this job, and I take my first vacation with my parents to go to Japan. That's where my family was living. And so we're on this flight. I'm with my mother, sit down next to this kind gentleman, and she's a very sociable person. So she starts talking to him. It's a 12-hour flight, so there's nothing to do. Once you start talking to somebody in hour one of the flight, you're kind of stuck talking to them for the next 11 hours. And so she starts talking to him, and he says, you should come to my show tonight at the Blue Note in Japan. And she's like, great, I'd love to. And I'm like, dude, I'm tired. I don't want to go, this is like my 1 week vacation from work. I don't want to go to see this random guy's show. Anyway, we go. It's a great show. We meet him backstage, and then he's like, so I'd love to like grab coffee with you the next tomorrow. And I'm like, what the fuck? I don't want to grab coffee with this guy. And so sorry, he asked me, not my mother. So the next day I go and grab coffee with him. And he tells me, hey, your mother in the flight told me that she's so sad. Once she learned I was in the music industry, she's so sad watching you every day squander your talent. She tells me you, John, used to be in the music industry, and she's so sad that you're squandering your talents, not doing what you're supposed to be doing. And so she asked me, in the flight while you were sleeping to see if I can help you. And so like I'm with Universal Japan. Is there anything I can do? Like, do you have a tape? I'd love to hear it. If so, like a demo tape. And I'm like, what the fuck? Of course, at this time, like I always have a USB stick or a CD at the time of my songs. And so I'm like, here's a bunch of stuff that I made a couple years ago that you can listen to. And then again, this is how I remember it. It probably took a couple of days, but then the way I remember it is the next day he calls me and he says, can you please come to the Universal Japan headquarters? So the next thing I know, meeting with the CEO of Universal Japan, Ken Oyama, and he's saying, we listened to your tape. We loved it and we want to sign you. It's like the exact same thing that happened with Jimmy. And I'm like, what the fuck, dude? This is
re-traumatization.
Like I was not thinking about any of this at all. But then that adrenaline rush came. I'm like, holy shit. Wait a second. I am the man. Like I can do this again. I'm the man. I doubted myself. I'm the man. And so once again,
doors are closed in the US. I should have just tried in a different country.
Exactly. So now suddenly I'm like, oh, dude, like I'm gonna be big in Japan. Like I could do this. And so exact same thing. He's like, meet your manager. Let's go into a studio session. And so that night I go into the studio it's a group called Teriyaki Boys, who I ended up doing a lot of work with. They're pretty famous for some of the works and the songs we did on Fast and Furious. I meet with Nigo, who's the founder of Bape. I meet with Verbal, who's the founder of Ambush, and I'm now part of that squad. I meet with Wise, who's part of Bape Sounds, and now I'm making music for these guys. And so a lot of the work
still working at Goldman Sachs.
At Goldman Sachs, and then I come back to GS, and I'm like, dude, you guys don't even know what I've been through. They're like, how was your vacation? I was like, yeah, it was okay, it was good. They have no idea, right? Because also you're not allowed to do two things. I think things have changed, by the way, in finance, but at the time you weren't allowed to do anything else. Like you had to disclose that you were doing something else. But I was like, I can't tell anybody about this. So I'm kind of living this
3 hours working, right? Goldman Sachs is like very high intensity.
Correct. Like you're literally not allowed to do anything else. Again, things have changed a lot, but this is 2009, 2010. It's like post financial crisis where I get it. They want everybody fully committed to making sure that their firm doesn't go belly up like so many other firms. And so I can't tell anybody. And so I am living this like secret agent, double agent life where during the day, from I started a little late, but like 10 a.m. to midnight, 1 or 2 a.m. I'm at work. By the way, while I'm at work, so the iPhone had just come out. I'm like texting with like Nigo and Verbal and all these guys in Japan. I'm like, yo, could you send me? And I have a manager at the time in Japan. And I have headphones in. I'm like, send me the latest mix. Like I'm like texting them so I can check the latest mix. And I'm like listening to it during the day. And then from like 2 to 10 a.m., we used Skype, which was like the big thing at the time. I was on like Skype virtual session. I'm not kidding you. I don't think I slept at all for like a good year, like 0, 0, 0, because I was so energized and excited about doing this. And so essentially what happened was for that 2-3 year period, I was making songs, writing songs and producing them and sending them to my manager in Japan, and then who was distributing them to Japanese artists. And we saw a tremendous amount of success in the Japanese market. We had multiple #1 hits. We had a couple albums go multi-platinum. We had some go gold, did a bunch of songs with the Teriyaki Boys. And then what happened was that some US artists who wanted to break into the Japanese music scene, pinged my management team and said, do you have any songs for us? And so I was fortunate enough to do songs with a bunch of US artists. I did a song with Nicki Minaj called Change Change. I did a song with Kool Keith that was never released. I did a song with Tyga that wasn't released. And I was like, wow, this is kind of crazy.
And you were like 22, 25, right?
Dude, I don't remember how old I was. It was like all a blur. No. I was like 27 probably. I don't remember. It's all a blur, but mid-20s, right? And so I have a huge amount of energy. And so this is, I'll tell you exactly how old I was because of the year. I was 26. And so in 2011, there was an earthquake, which ultimately led to a tsunami in Japan, the Tohoku earthquake. It was a terrible, tragic incident. Almost 20,000 people died. It hasn't happened again, but it was a terrible tsunami that affected the Tohoku region of Japan. When that happened, I got a call from my manager saying, "Hey, Kylie Minogue reached out, and she wants to do. I don't know if she wants to do or she's been asked by UNICEF to do a charity song for the victims of this Tohoku earthquake." At the time, I was writing a song for Calvin Klein for the fragrance, The One, or CK1. And so I said, oh, we have this song that we've been working on for Calvin Klein, the CK1 song. I can just repurpose that, and instead of CK1, I can make it We Are One. And he's like, let me propose that to the Kylie team. And by the way, this is all happening so fast because obviously this earthquake happened on March 11. By March 12, like a day later, I was on a Skype call. Again, Skype was really cool with Kylie. Never met her in person, by the way. And we said, great, let's do this song. We got to put it out like right now. And so we just quickly changed the vocals from CK1 to We Are One. And so We Are One, the Kylie Minogue song, became the official UNICEF song, the charity song for the Tohoku earthquake. This is such inside baseball. But if you listen to the backing vocals, that's like a demo track that I made with a friend of mine because we didn't have time to actually fully record some of this stuff. And so a lot of the backing vocals are actually the demo vocals that I recorded with a friend of mine. And so that was, long story short, that was a wild, wild time. And I thought, wow, I'm working with these big US names. I have a ton of success in Japan. But from a pure financial perspective, I'm not making as much as I thought I would. And by the way, just to come back to what did success feel like? Your question was, what did success feel like? Now I'm 26 or 27, and I'm naively thinking success not only is the adrenaline rush, but it's also the money. So I just want money and fame, which is like the dumbest thing. But again, that many,
the dark side.
To my defense, a lot of 26 or 27-year-olds should think that. Yeah. And so I was like, I'm not getting paid enough. I need way more money. I want money. And the way to do that, I thought, was to own my own master records, right? To actually control the distribution and to own all my master records. And so I thought, you know what? I'm just going to branch away and I'm going to start my own label because I have a name now in this industry in Japan. And I have a bunch of songs already. And I have artists that I could sign pretty fast. And so I'm going to do that. So I did that. And so that was my production company, Relabel. And so sure enough, was able to sign the artist that I wanted to. The first album we put out goes #1 on iTunes. And I'm like, fuck yeah, like I'm going to be rich. What I didn't realize was all the stuff that the other, parts, other teams and other parts were doing, now that fell upon me, of administering rights, of having to deal with the intricacy, like the personnel issues,
you still had to work at the Goldman.
And I still had to work at GS.
Jesus.
But it's like, I thought that it was, nothing was happening. You just, make a song, you put it out, it goes #1, you make money. Obviously that was naive. There's so much that happens behind the scene of negotiating points, of talking to the labels to understand distribution, of working with the artists who are, creative beings who need a lot of hand holding. And this was just so much to me. By the way, a lot of the discussions that I was having at the time, I thought, were just handshake agreements. A lot of them didn't come through. And so I thought the moment we have a #1 record, which we did, that's it, we've won. But that wasn't the case, right? And so once again, I'm in this weird position where I'm like, wow, nothing is happening. And this actually isn't as big a success as I thought it was.
So can you tell us, to people who don't know much about the music industry, once the song goes #1, we kind of assume that you just get money sent to your bank from all those Apple Music and everything?
Well, so you do through royalties, but like previous to that, you have to negotiate the points and the splits that you're going to get on each song, which is, sometimes contentious. So by that, you like, for each song, there's not just one writer, and there's not just one producer. There's multiple writers in any of these songs. And so every writer gets some points or percentages of that song. And so you might think that your contribution is 50% of the whole song, and then therefore you're entitled to more points. But another writer might think, whoa, like I deserve 50%. You deserve 10. And so that whole negotiation, previous to this, my manager was doing on my behalf. But now, because I owned everything, I had to do all this. And that at the time, by the way, I'm still 26 or 27, and I don't think I still have fully developed proper defense mechanisms to understand, to deal with stress. And I'll get into it later. But the stress was just piling up and up and up and up. And that impacts what I put out, because I'm thinking, okay, I'm probably not going to get as many points. It starts to become an economic game then. I'm not going to get that many points on this song, so I'm not going to put that much time into it. Let me just ship it out. And then, but this one, I think I'm going to get a lot of points on, so let me put time onto that, which is terrible, right? As an artist, what I should have done was just focused on the craft. I should have said, let me just make the best song possible. I do not care how many points I get, because ultimately, if the song is successful and I keep on putting out hit after hit, I'm going to make it. It doesn't matter. Very similar, by the way, to tech, where you shouldn't worry about competition. You shouldn't worry about the amount of money you raised. If you just build a 10x better consumer, product, that then your customers will come, or a 10x better customer, product, then your customers will come. That's all that matters, because then they'll use your product, they'll love it, and then you can actually build a real business. I didn't realize it. I just thought, but I can get more money here, less money there. So let me focus on making the most money without paying attention to the craft. And so all this is building up, all the stress of I got to negotiate these deals. I have artists complaining to me. By the way, I'm so busy dealing with my existing artists that I can't even sign new artists. Because and I didn't realize it
at the time.
So I had 2 employees at the time, but we're all we're just, this is all bootstrapped. We're just struggling. We're hustling. And by the way,
one of them is still active on LinkedIn. I think one of the employees.
Yeah. So we still have a portfolio of records, which the distribution rights we've already sold, but just administering them takes time. And so ultimately what we decided was dude, I think we got to get out of this business. Or at least I thought that. I'm not sure if they did, but I thought we got to get out of this business. I don't like this at all. And then once you start to think that way, every day you wake up, it's just this huge weight on you. And the feeling just intensified of, oh, wow, I hate this. And it just got worse and worse and worse and worse. And, then so I decided, quickly, wow, I have to get out. I don't want to burn people. So I have to make something. I want to sell this. I just want to get out clean. I don't want to burn people. And so every single moment from then on, once I decided that, I basically decided, okay, this is it. This is over. I don't want to do this, but I don't want it to go to zero. I just need to sell this. And so I just figured out, what am I going to sell? I got to cobble some parts together. I have these distribution rights. I have these artists. Let me just find a buyer for this. Let me package this. That's all I was thinking about. Any new opportunity that came in, I can't even remember because I was in such a dark spot. I just said no to, which was terrible. In hindsight, I should have said, well, hold on. Let's consider that, because maybe we have a shot. But again, I had just given up. I'm out. I'm done. I don't want to do this. It doesn't matter if there's another shot. I just want to get out of this business. And so I ultimately was able to find a buyer for the distribution rights to my portfolio of songs, which on the paper is amazing because everybody's like, wow, you sold your business. And in reality, it was a okay outcome for me. Specifically, from a financial perspective, it wasn't the biggest, financial outcome possible. The joke I always tell is it provided me with enough money to allow me to take out a jumbo mortgage to buy my first house. So in that sense, it was good. But it wasn't the, wow, I never have to work again. It was the, because of this sale, I can now take out an inordinate amount of debt from a bank to buy a house. But from an emotional perspective, it was a, what the fuck am I supposed to do now? Right? Like I've had 2 ups and downs with the music industry. Like, do I really want to do this again? And so that was like a real emotional low. But at this of me thinking, okay, I've just spent 28 years of my life in and out of the music industry, music. Like, why am I doing this? Like, do I actually want to do this? Or am I only doing it because, candidly, my parents, taught me piano and violin, and I'm kind of doing it because I think that they want me to do this, but I don't really think I want to do this. And so that's the first time I was asking myself, what do I want to do? Right? As weird as that sounds, if you get back to, think about why I was doing that in Japan, it was because my mother reached out to that guy and she said, can you please help him? I, my mother, feel so sad looking at him. And I didn't want her to be sad. And so that's why I was like, I'm going to do it again. When I think about the Interscope Records thing, I was just doing music because writing my own songs because I had done classical piano and violin my whole life because they wanted me to do it. It's not because I was like, I love music, I want to do this. Again, like, don't blame them. It's amazing, right? They pushed me to do this, but it was the first time when I thought, okay, I don't actually think like I want to do this, which is such a weird thing to say because I had the gift and the skill to do this, but it doesn't matter if you don't actually want to do that thing.
Did you feel like you were
go ahead?
Like all of the motivation that you've had within you to allow you to juggle basically Goldman Sachs and relabel and do all of these night-day cycles was because you had that fire within you, was trying to prove that you can to your parents? To your
I
mother
think that's a huge part of it. To my parents, side note, I'm an only child, and so like all the pressure was on me. But even it's not just to my parents. If you think about, why did I do Goldman? It's because I had not the pressure, but like I wanted to compete with my friends who were also doing this, right? And so that's why it was just extrinsic pressure and extrinsic validation that I just sought so deeply, right? I wanted validation from my parents that they didn't waste all the time and effort, giving me private lessons growing up. I wanted validation from my friends that, I'm actually, as capable, as smart as they are, as evidenced by getting a job at a great employer. There was nothing intrinsic about any of my motivation. It was all just seeking external or extrinsic validation, which for the first time as a 27-year-old, I actually realized. Side note, on the note of validation, I'm also like, I yearn competition and I seek, this is like so weird. At the time, I sought vengeance. And so I had a literal folder in my inbox called shit list. And anytime somebody would email me with some modicum of rejection or not belief, I would immediately categorize them into shit list. I'm not kidding you. And I'd be like, I'm going to go through this folder. And when I make it, I'm going to email all of them to be like, I made it. You disproved me. Which, thinking back to it, I'm like, dude, who cares what, like, they're going to, of course, yes, you get rejected sometimes. You don't get rejected other times. Who cares? Like, they don't know who I am. But so much of it was driven by this extrinsic nature. I should screenshot and share with you this shit list, which I still go through sometimes just to laugh, because the rejection emails are not even rejection emails. They're like, oh, we don't have time at this moment, but thanks so much for reaching out. And then, old me's like, oh, this is going to be my shit list. I'm going to get you.
So you took that person as if this was like putting your self-worth. This is
correct.
Basically, you were trying. Oh.
And so for the first time, I'm like, wow, this is embarrassing. Like, I have no internal motivating factors. Like, I don't really know what I want to do. And so I'm like, I think, and so I took time to really think through, like, what do I want to do?
How long did it take?
And here's the punchline is, I don't think at the time, it wasn't like, I know what I want to do. So it's not like, after a month, I was like, I know what I want to do. I think the punchline is, I was like, I have no idea what I want to do. Right. Which is not, by the way, uncommon. If you're, at the time I'm 27 or 28, if you're late 20s, you've gone to, you've done the whole system. You entice you into college, you started your career, you're 4 or 5 years in. Talking to a lot of folks around this age, I think it's very common. Like, you're suddenly out in the big ocean. You have no idea like what you want to do. You're kind of going by, following the rules for the whole time. And then you're like, okay, well, what am I supposed to do with my life? And so I had that as well, where I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And so to answer your question, it wasn't like after a month I knew exactly what I was supposed to do. I was clueless. Mind you, I'm still at Goldman at this time, for the whole time.
Did they have any idea?
They had no idea. But by the way, they had no idea that I'm also going through these like emotional swings of like total depression to like, super high to like total depression. So I'm still at Goldman.
They're just like, John's listening to a lot of music lately.
Yeah, no. They were actually like, it's weird. John used to have headphones in his ears at all times. But now he's like, he doesn't even have his headphones in. This is probably what they thought, because I just stopped doing the music. So ultimately what happened at GS. So I'm at GS, and my boss at the time says, hey, we're going to fire the partner on the team in the London office. That's like, the partners are like the most senior people at GS. There's like 400 of them. And so she's like, and I'm a senior associate at the time. So I'm still like a little shit. I'm a nobody, obviously, basically. But she's like, can one of you, there's like 4 of us, go out to London for 12 days because we're going to fire him on this day, or for 2 weeks. I need one of you to go out and basically, make sure that when he's terminated, there's still some continuation with his clients. And so you got to go through his inbox, make sure you reach out to them because he's going to have client meetings, and make sure that we don't drop the ball on anything. By the way, it's like to be client facing is a big thing at GS because you're representing the firm in front of clients. And so I just raised my hand. I'm like, I'll do it. I'll go to London. Because I'm searching for some reason to like exist, and what am I supposed to do? And so I just raised my hand. In general, I just raised my hand for a lot of things because I think, what's the worst that can happen? Right? At this point, because I'm like, what's the worst that can happen? I have nothing anyway in my life, or so I think. And so the worst that can happen is it's a shitty experience. Best case, I got a great bar story to tell friends. And so I go to London under the pretense that this guy's about to get fired, and I just need to make sure that I'm basically manning the coverage until the next partner comes in. And so sure enough, this guy gets fired. And then it turns out he has a meeting like the next morning with a big client. And I'm like, oh, fuck, like nobody, they don't have the backup in yet. I'm a little 27-year-old shit. And so I say, you know what? I'm just going to go into the meeting and I'm going to pretend like I run the team. So I go into and I'm like, I don't know what compelled me to do this, but I go into this meeting and the guy's like, who are you? And I was like, oh, I'm John. I'm head of the London team, of the EMEA team. He's like, okay. And I'm just like, you know what? Fake it till you make it, baby. So at that point, I just convinced myself, like, I run this team. I'm now the partner. I'm not, but I just convinced myself I'm the partner. I run all of Europe, Middle East, and Asia for my team. That's me. And so I just play that role. And it turns out I'm very, very good at it. And so what was supposed to be a 2-week trip, to make sure that everything is okay before they hire this person, becomes 6 months. And that becomes 12 months. And that becomes 18 months. And so I just do that role for 18 months. And so I'm like, wow, I'm good at this. Specifically, what I was good at was understanding these clients' needs very quickly and figuring out, okay, what are the pieces I can bring in, like to actually help them accomplish what they want. It wasn't I need to do this and I need to build what they want. I was very good at figuring out, because I knew I wasn't actually good at finance, but I was very good at figuring out which pieces I needed to bring in order to help these clients.
And looking back,
and so
could you have said that you've kind of replaced having to prove something to your parents with taking on an amazingly complex task to prove something to the other partners within the company? We're like, I have to start up. I have to show them.
Yeah, no. So I think so. And it was also at this time, the first time where somebody else other than my parents believed in me. As in, I had a manager at the firm that actually believed in me and actually gave me an opportunity. Now, that's not because nobody believed in me. It's because, I was early in my career and nobody's going to suddenly, risk their reputation on somebody that only has 1 or 2 years experience. Yeah. But this person was willing to risk her reputation on me, somebody that now had, 5 or 6 years experience. That was by putting me in these situations, by allowing me to potentially embarrass her in front of clients. I never wanted to let that happen because she, my manager, actually believed in me. And so this was also the first time where, somebody in the professional setting was willing to take a big risk on me, and I wanted to reciprocate. Mm-hmm. And actually it's now my favorite quote that I really believe in, and I still embody to this day, that the famous philosopher LeBron James once tweeted. He said, when you stop working hard, you disrespect those that believe in you. And that was really what I believed in my mantra going into this, of this person believes in me. I don't want to stop working because I don't want her to feel disrespected. And so it wasn't just a let me fake it till I make it. Initially it was, but then it became, okay, now I faked it. Like I actually have to learn this. I actually have to be good at this craft. And so that's all I did for 18 months. I lived in the office. People that, worked with me and knew me at the time will laugh because I'm sure they'll remember me. I slept under my desk. The lights were always on in the office, so I had to tie my tie around my eyes as an eye mask. I literally never left the office. I was just like, I'm just going to work here 160 hours a week. I actually know that was how much I worked for 6 months because I was pulled in by HR where they were able to see when you came in and out of the office because we had a prox, and they had to pull me in to say, yo, you got to leave the office because they could see that I would never, ever, ever leave. And I was breaching that mark. And so that was amazing. And what I also realized was there was a ton of activity and growth, both at the company and internally. And so I no longer thought oh, what am I doing? What am I supposed to do? I was growing as an individual. I was seeing success. And so the feelings of, oh, I only have so much time to figure out what I'm supposed to do on this plan. I only have so much time to figure out my North Star kind of went away, right? They were replaced by, I really enjoy what I'm doing. I'm really good at what I'm doing. The people around me, I enjoy working with them. They're pleased with my work. And so it was more, I'm learning a ton. I mean, I'm the best, but I'm just learning and I really enjoy this. And so no part of me was great, I need to find the next thing I'm going to do because I need to have a North Star.
Did you have a plan for moving in the corporate world, partner?
No plan. Just, living in the moment of I'm really good at this. I'm going to do this. That's all I care about. I don't know if I'm going to be here for a long time, but I don't yearn leaving. I don't yearn looking for the next thing. All of that changed when I was sent on a due diligence trip to Berlin, Germany, to do due diligence on a company that the firm that Goldman wanted to actually invest in. The team that I was on at the time was actually making investments out of Goldman Sachs' balance sheet. And so the team was investing in, at the time, incredible tech companies like Uber and Airbnb and Spotify and Dropbox. Couldn't miss. Not because of me, but because of the other smarter people on the team. But they couldn't miss. And so they wanted to send me out to Berlin, Germany to meet with this new founder who was starting this travel company. And he was this hotshot. And I met with him and he explained his vision to me. And I thought, wow, I've never really traveled a ton. And I love what he's saying. And also maybe travel is the thing that I could get really into. And so long story short, I never came back from that due diligence trip. I just stayed in Berlin. And I was so Goldman ultimately did invest in this company. I just stayed in Berlin. I was you know what? I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to join this company. And I even remember I was supposed to leave, go back to London. And I pinged the founder of the company and I said, hey, are you guys looking for somebody to join? I'll do this. I'll do this and I'll join your company if you're looking for somebody to hire. And we went for a beer and he's like, are you serious? And I was like, yeah, I don't need to go back. I'll just stay and do this. And I think what I also realized was it was my nature to just want to move fast on things. And I think I had learned that from the music industry, because if you're in the studio with an artist, you might not ever be in the studio with that artist again. So your immediate thing to say is, yo, let's just make a song. Let's do this right now. We could put this out. And so my default was just speed, just say yes and then think about the concept first and then think about the consequences next. It's just like when at the time they're like, does anybody want to go to London? I just said yes. And then I thought about the consequences next. And so here as well, I just told him, I'll do this and then think about the consequences next. Specifically, the consequences were I had no place to stay. And
Exactly,
so I
because you
literally
had
just,
like rent, gym membership, stuff at the
yeah.
office,
I'm like, oh,
everything
should I?
in
So I
one.
got to figure this out. I was there with a suitcase for probably like 2 weeks. I have pictures of me just like with, plastic bags of like figuring out like what I'm doing here. But what eventually happened was I left Goldman. I joined this company called Go Euro. It's now called Omeo, as one of their first hires on the business development team. And so my job at the time was to reach out to train and bus companies across Europe in order to get their data and their timetables, their fares that this company Go Euro would then be able to sell tickets for. And so most of these train companies were state-owned monopolistic train companies that had never shared their data with any third party in the history of their existence. And suddenly here I came, a naive, wide-eyed 30-year-old saying, hey, give me your data and we can sell tickets for you. But again, I was really, really good at faking it till I made it. And so I just pretended like I was the train expert, the travel expert. And sure enough, for the first time ever in these companies' histories, they agreed to sharing data with my company. And then I was like, wow, this is awesome. I'm learning about travel. I'm really good at this job. I'm traveling, right? Because I had to go to all these European countries to strike deals with these train operators, and I'm seeing the world, right? So for the first time, by the way, I was in New York and Japan, two beautiful and incredible cities, but those were really the only places that I'd gone to. I had never really seen the world. And so as I started to travel, albeit through Europe, I would go to so many small cities in Europe, again, to strike deals with the local bus operator or the local train company. And I would see, life like I had never seen before. As in, I would go to the smallest, villages in Eastern Europe, in Poland, in Spain, where there's one bar, and that's where everybody goes to watch, the one game. And people would have on, a Biggie Smalls shirt, and I'd be like, wow, they have no connection to New York, right? No connection to Biggie Smalls. Like, this is their life. I'm so fortunate that I have everything. I have everything you could ever ask for. An amazing, career and life in New York, an amazing experience that I had in Japan. These people would die to have, a tenth, a hundredth of what I've experienced. And yet I'm complaining about like, oh, I got it. Like, what is my life? What am I doing? Oh, woe is me. It just gave me such an appreciation, for how fortunate I was. And so, I continued this job, and slowly,
did you notice the difference in the kind of like the grit, the pace at which people move? Because you went from super high speed, kind of like work ethic,
yep,
to then working in Europe. And as everybody in the US always knows, Europe is kind of slow, relaxed. We're doing things our way. Did you notice your differences between like the way you like to work?
So it's actually yes. And it's a reason why I decided I wanted to actually start my own company, because I'm always going 120 miles per hour. And I still did that at this company, and I would work every single weekend. Like, there is no work-life balance for me. It's just all one complete mesh of like, this is my life. Like, I love to work. I love to go out as well, but I'm just doing everything all at once. And so I wasn't seeing that in other people. And I also, and to some extent, I was seeing that in the founder, but I also of this company, but I always thought that I can't stop working. Again, it's all just a mishmash of my life is my work and my work is my life. And I love to go out. I love to travel. I love to work. But then I was thinking, if I'm still working 140 hours, 160 hours a week, like, why am I working on somebody else's vision? I should just work on my own vision again. Now, by the way, that decision is not an easy one, because there's this trauma in my mind of, wait. Last time I did that, I had this terrible, terrible experience with Relabel. Again, the outcome wasn't bad. It's just that I remember all those emotions. So it wasn't like once I decided to do that, I was going to do that. Like, it took a lot of like coercing and convincing me that I should actually do this again, right? Because I've already seen what that looks like and I hate it. And so I'm like, what should I really do this? And so this time, but I decided, you know what? Before I do this, I should really ask my friends and like my smarter friends what they think, rather than just going at it all by myself, trial by fire with no mentorship or anything. Let me just do this. And so I kept on pinging my really good friend, Mike Botta, who is now a co-founder at Sesame. He was my college hallmate, and we were all, we were great friends throughout college. He calls me his best friend. I call him my sixth good friend. We were great friends throughout college. And I immediately knew, oh, this guy is smart. He's a year older than me. I was like, this guy is fucking smart. And so I would call Mike. I'd be like, dude, I want to start a company. But he was one of my groomsmen, like truly, all jokes aside, one of my best friends. And he knew all the challenges I had selling Relabel and the experiences I had building it. And so I told him, I want to do this again, but I don't want to have that same thing happen to me. Talk me through this. And so we kept on talking. And then a couple of things that I realized. I wasn't successful at Interscope and I wasn't successful at Relabel because I was doing two things at once, right? I was doing college and Interscope. I was doing Goldman and Relabel. I realized I got to do one thing. Like I can't be spread too thin. If I'm going to go all in, I'm going all in. And the reason I did two things at once was because I think you see and you idolize the people that are doing multiple things at once, seemingly, and they're able to, right? Like at the peak, you have hustle. I don't understand it. Yeah, like at the peak, you have Elon Musk who has like 19, companies. But even not then, you have all these people on Twitter saying, here are my 6 side hustles, each making 100K. And so I always thought, oh, like you're supposed to have a lot of things that you do at once. And like you hustle and you make all of them a success. All these people on Instagram and Twitter are doing that. Right. And so this is also the heyday, by the way, of like influencer marketing, where you see people, I travel and I have a job and I have amazing, these side hustles. And I'm like, if they can do it, don't forget, I'm very competitive. So I'm like, if they can do it, like, obviously I could have like 4 businesses at one time. But now for the first time, I'm like, okay, maybe not. Maybe if I'm actually going to be successful, like very successful, I have to do one thing and only one thing. And actually, when I thought back to why I was so successful in London at GS and so successful in Berlin, is because that's actually the only thing I was doing. I stopped doing music at the time. I was only focused on banking. I was only focused on GoEuro, the travel company. And so I actually realized, oh, you know what? I got to go all in. I can only do one thing, and that's all I'm going to do. And if I'm not successful, it's okay, because at least I didn't spread myself thin. And so I quit without knowing. I quit the job without having an idea of what I was going to do next, to force myself to figure out what it was going to be. I left Berlin. It was an amazing experience.
Did you have enough cash saved up until that point?
So
how much runway did you have?
So the company did tremendously well. I had side note, I probably had like 3 months runway, but I'm very crafty. Like I'm a total hustler. And so
slept under the bench in the park.
No, this is probably for another time, but I've slept at a train station for a month. Like I'm just a hustler is what I realized. I figured out that if I could I had great credit score. I figured out that if I could open up a bunch of credit cards, and Venmo at the time charged no fees on credit card on payments that you would make for one another. What I would do is I would just pay my wife with one credit card on Venmo, and then she'd deposit that money into my account. And then when that credit card payment was due, I'd pay her on a separate credit card with a different due date in order to pay back this one. And I just was like, how has nobody figured this out? A loop. Yeah. I mean, by the way, I have spreadsheets of like daily. I knew exactly how much money I had and how much money I needed to pay off the previous. I literally have daily spreadsheets to know exactly when I had to pay off the previous credit card and when the next credit card was due. I had like 40 credit cards open at this point.
There's a startup idea right there.
Brutal. I don't wish this on anybody. But so I go back to New York. I'm talking with Mike to figure out what I'm like. I want to build a company. Mike, my smartest friend, tell me why I shouldn't build this idea or that idea. I had a couple of ideas, and they were all surrounding consumer, because I just had this experience in the travel industry.
Remember some
as a
of those
consumer facing.
ideas.
So my wife was pregnant at the time, so I was going to do something that related to, and she had a lot of questions about pregnancy, about like, first time pregnancy. So I wanted to do something around, some social network where new expected mothers could actually exchange ideas about pregnancy, which I still think is a cool idea. I had an idea, and she was shopping for like, what's the best crib? What's the best stroller? And so I was like, ooh, what about a marketplace where right, you could aggregate like the best for something based on your demographic, and then you get affiliate marketing for that. That actually since launched. I still think that's a good idea. I was thinking of a direct to consumer stroller that was like way more effective than some of these like super high end ones, because it was all complicated to me. Regardless, Mike would shoot down every idea that I would have, or rightfully so, because I think these are a good idea. But as I'm explaining them to him, I'm like, these can't scale. And so also he kept on saying, don't do those terrible ideas. Do my idea, Mike's idea, which is this healthcare marketplace. And I was like, stop there. I don't know anything about healthcare. Don't want to touch healthcare. I don't want to hear your shitty idea about healthcare. Healthcare is scary. I don't want to touch it. Listen to my idea about this travel stroller that I want to make. And so we went back and forth for about 6 months. After that 6-month period, I still don't have the idea. And so I actually think, you know what? I'm going to not do this because I don't have the idea that I want. I had, and I don't want to have this
having a baby.
I have a pregnant wife. Yeah. And I don't want to have this terrible experience that I've had, that I like, similar to the one at Relabel. So I'm just going to get a job. Fuck it. It's okay. I'm just going to get a job. I had great success at this travel company, so I'm going to get a job. I go to a job interview, and again, super competitive. So I just hustle my way out there, and I get a job interview at a company in San Francisco. So I go to San Francisco, and I'm in this interview. It's like their last interview. So I'm in the meeting for probably 4 or 5 hours. They're having me meet with the whole team. I come out of the interview and I have like 20 missed calls from my wife, and so I call her back and I'm like, "What's going on? Is everything okay?" It turns out she went in for what she thought was going to be a routine checkup for our pregnant for her pregnancy, and it turns out that our child had something really bad that we thought at the time happened to her as a girl, which was a microchromosomal deletion. And so specifically, the doctors said, "We're so sorry." She was 20 weeks pregnant at this point, and she had this abnormality where essentially she was missing a microchromosome. That could lead to autism. It could lead to death. And the doctors said, you still have 4 weeks to decide whether you want to terminate this pregnancy because the risks are too high for this child. And so I distinctly remember this phone call, because I distinctly remember being in San Francisco, just walking around being like, what the fuck what the fuck am I going to do? Right? Like, this was supposed to be the best moment of our lives. And now I'm on the other side with my wife, who's crying, bawling out, obviously, because the doctor has just told her, you have 4 weeks to decide if you want to terminate this. It's literally a ticking time bomb. I'm not kidding you. I call Mike, right, as like my sounding board to be like, first of all, Mike's a PhD also. And so I'm like, Mike, tell me how bad this is. What am I supposed to do? And so he doesn't know, because this is a very rare thing that happens. But I'm talking through it with him. And so I come back to New York, and, from then on, we have 4 weeks to decide what we're going to do with this pregnancy. We're going in for these visits with the doctors. They don't really have answers, because so much of medicine and so much of it is unknown. And a lot of it is fear-based too, right? And then I'm going on these forums to figure out, like, what are the implications of this? And it's also unknown. Right? Like, people are like, some people are like, I terminated. Others are like, no, I didn't. And I'm really glad I didn't. But basically, it's all unknown. And I think added to that, like, that's healthcare, right? So much of healthcare is unknown. Mm-hmm. Added to that, there's these couple of articles that say, if you can get the right care for the child, even if they have the worst case of this, it's a microchromosomal deletion, you can get treatment for it. But you have to have good coverage, through your employee, because a lot of through your employer, excuse me, because a lot of the required treatment is not actually covered by insurance. And I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? Not covered by insurance? Like, if this is happening to your child, then everybody should be able to get this treatment. It turns out that that's not the case, right? Some of these treatments are really expensive. And so the people that can't afford this, this treatment, ultimately they'll have a child with, very bad symptoms, or they'll terminate the child because they don't think they can afford the proper treatment for them. And I'm reading these terrible, gruesome posts in Reddit, and I'm thinking, why? This makes no sense. This is like, everybody should be able to, seek and receive this treatment for their child. And yet some people aren't because it's not covered through their insurance plan. Like, I don't really understand how this works, but this doesn't make sense. And also I'm thinking about my own experience where I'm just going into these doctors' offices, again, for a ton of procedures. Nobody has told me how much the price of any of this is. Like, I'm just walking out. But mind you, I've never really had interactions with the healthcare system. I've lived in Europe now for a while, so I don't really know how convoluted healthcare is. But I do know that we're going into a ton of appointments and nobody has sent me like an invoice yet or a bill. And I'm also like, I don't know, like, am I going to be able to afford this? Like, obviously I want to save my child. It's the most important thing to me. Like, how much is this costing me? I had no idea. And so for the first time, I call Mike and I say, yo, Mike, tell me about this healthcare idea you have. Like, I'm now curious. And so he starts to tell me about this, and it all is clicking to me because everything he's describing is everything that I'm experiencing with my child and everything that I've read on Reddit and on these posts. And so I tell him, and it's funny, in these key moments, you just remember exactly where you were and exactly what happened. I was getting my LG OLED TV installed, and there was chaos in my house. And I called Mike and I said, come right now, because I want to do this with you and I want to talk with you about this. And sure enough, he showed up 30 minutes later. There are people drilling holes in my wall to install the wall bracket. Like, I remember in vivid detail my saying, I want to do this with you. Let's do this. Just like I remember, right, when I went to Jimmy's office, I remember the exact position that I was sitting in. I know the exact chair I was sitting in. I know this exact moment where I told Mike, I want to do this with you. Like, I've seen enough to realize that what you're describing is a problem. I want to build this with you. And so that was the moment where I decided that I'm going to be a healthcare entrepreneur, right? Because this problem I saw firsthand happen to myself. I was reading just deep and dark posts about how it affected others. This was what I wanted to do with my life for my daughter. Now, side note, we were able to get the treatment for her. She's fine now because I was, because we were able to get this treatment. So everything is fine. And I can get into Sesame, the business that we ultimately created. But I wanted to quickly first come back to what I started with. You can never connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. I am doing exactly what I want now. I am building a healthcare product that helps people with real needs, that allows them to get care that they otherwise wouldn't have gotten. It's everything I wanted to do. I love it. I wake up every moment thrilled. Let's walk backwards. If I hadn't been dropped from Interscope, I would have never worked at Goldman Sachs. If I didn't work at Goldman Sachs, I would have never taken that 1 week vacation to Japan where I met with the Universal executive, where I ultimately signed. If I didn't stay at Goldman after I sold Relabel, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to go to London. If I didn't go to London, I wouldn't have gone to Berlin to meet with Goyero to join the company. If I didn't have that experience in the travel company at Goyero, I would have never had the bug to start a consumer-facing tech company, a marketplace. And then if you can even go further back, if I never went to Princeton, I would have never met Mike. And so ultimately, everything connected. Right? All the dots connected to this moment where Mike and I decided, you know what? Let's do it. Let's build this company. At any step of the way, had I done something different, I probably wouldn't have been here. And so truly, you cannot connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect the dots looking backwards.
Well, when you get all of these opportunities getting thrown at you at all different times in your life, how do you know to trust the universe and be like, I should go for this? I should take this?
I think at a certain point, so I think very early on, I had no idea. I was just going with momentum. And that's why made a lot of bad mistakes, because it was just momentum, momentum, momentum. I think over time, I really learned to just trust my gut. Let's come back to again, it's a fine story now, but that 4-week period where the doctor gave my wife and I the option to terminate. You could apply the question there. How do you know, it's literally a life or death situation. How do you know whether or not you're supposed to terminate a child? You don't, right? You have to go with your gut. And so ultimately, we as a team went with our gut. We wanted to raise this child. As I said, everything is fine now. We're so fortunate and blessed. But I've learned over time to really trust the gut and go with your gut, because ultimately, you know yourself. Now, your gut is often wrong, but often and most times there's a reason why you trusted your gut. And oftentimes those things ultimately enable you to actually be successful at whatever choice you made.
What do you think are the main lessons that you have taken from, because of your early failures during the downtime, the downturns? What are the lessons that you took from it that kind of helped you?
I think that the one thing you learn after having a lot of failures is, it's just a classic saying. When you get, knocked down, you just got to get right back up. And so in entrepreneurship, that is, the norm is you're going to get rejected more often than you're not. Things are not going to work more often than they are going to. You're going to get knocked down more often, than you're doing the knocking down. I think the key is you're never knocked out, right? As there's another famous philosopher, Allen Iverson, said, same fight, different round, right? That's how I feel, is you just got to continue fighting. You're going to get knocked down a ton. You just keep on fighting. You just keep on showing up. You put in the hard work, and then great things will happen. I think and so I think in general, my pain tolerance has gone up tremendously. I think the reason why ultimately I gave up in music was because I didn't have that pain tolerance, right? I hadn't experienced rejection to that extent or to that degree, but now I have, right? And so when we go to investors or partners or to employees who you're trying to make an offer to, and they say no, they reject you, that's fine. Move on. I get it. Move on to the next fight. Old me would have categorized them in my shit list inbox, first of all. I'm kidding. But old me would have been knocked out at that point. Old me would have said, I can't do this. I hate this. But now it's just, you wake up and you assume that nothing is going to work. And it's your responsibility to make it work. It's your responsibility to fix it. And so I think that's the biggest thing that I learned. And that's just not from rejection, as I said, from investors or from prospective employees or from prospective partners. It's even with our product. Like, we're launching products that we think are going to work, and frequently they don't. Like, frequently our customers ultimately don't end up using it, and that's fine, right? Your expectations were dashed, but you just got to keep going. You got to iterate, fix it, make it better, launch it again. Maybe it doesn't work again. It's fine. Keep on going, keep making it better. At some point, you start to get to something that works, right? And so I think that's the big lesson is, don't get knocked out. Getting knocked down is fine. Just get right back up and just keep going.
I think the main problem for a lot of founders is generating that self-confidence, which comes from self-belief. If you don't have anyone actively believing in you and telling you, don't worry, you can do it, it's nothing, then you're only stuck with the voice inside your own head. And whenever you fall down, it basically says, oh, well, it was destined, you're a loser, like, you're not supposed to, you're not enough. How do you get yourself to a point where you have an upper hand in those conversations every single time to get yourself back up?
Oh, I don't think I'm there. I mean, there's dark places. I think I want to get better at it, but there's dark places, right? So everything I'm saying, it's not like when somebody says, somebody rejects you or says no, I'm just like, okay, that's good. I'll go right back at it. There's still like deep, dark conversations of, oh man, I can't believe after all these years, I'm still getting rejected. There's still dark conversations that I have, with myself, but I think it's the speed with which you get out of that, right? Which I've gotten really better at. I think the most ideal is you never have those conversations. You're just right out of it. But I think the truth is you're always going to have the, I suck conversations. I've heard this from, and the importance is how quickly you get out of that. And so I've heard this from Djokovic talking about tennis as well. You're not going to win every single point. And so when you lose a point, you obviously are going to say, why did I do that? But the next point is going to happen now. So it's more how quickly can you get out of that moment, right? To just focus on the next point. Because if you're harboring that to the next point, then you're probably going to lose the next point as well. And so that's very similar to that. Right? In our current business, you're not going to win every single deal. You're not going to have every single investor say yes. You're not going to have every single prospective employee join your company. You're going to get rejected. And that's okay. And it's okay to think, what did we do? Why did we get rejected? But then it's about how quickly, right, do you come back up? How quickly are you ready for the next pitch? How quickly are you ready to iterate on your product? How quickly are you ready to reach out to the next candidate to hire them? It's all about the speed to actually getting back on your feet that I think is important.
Did you ever learn to detach yourself from your company, your product, whenever you get rejections? That each rejection is not personal. It's basically not a perfect match.
So no, and that's a bad thing. But I also think that's my superpower because I take everything so personally. So, that's the old saying of, it's just business, it's okay. But as I said, like business and work is my life, right? And so it's like, it's not okay to me, right? I'm not okay if you reject me or my company or whatever it might be. I'm not okay with that, like period, full stop. I don't think that's a good thing. But as I said, I think it's my superpower in that I hold a tremendous amount of responsibility and guilt and vengeance. No, I'm kidding. Right. I hold a tremendous, I take it very, very personally. As I said, like I'll get right back on my feet, but it's not just some third party. It's okay. It's just my business. They're not talking about me. Like I take everything personally, and that's a direct reflection on me. And so I want to make it better. And I really think that comes from, my experience in the music industry where I was putting, my product was an artistic reflection of myself. And so my songs were literally a reflection of my feelings and what I was imagining at the time. And I took every rejection, deeply personally, because when they say no to a song, they're saying no to you. They're saying no to your emotions. They're saying no to what you had in your head that you put on paper. And so I feel the same way with business, right? When somebody says no to a product or an investment, I take that personally, right? This company is a reflection of my emotions, of my being. And so everything is very, very personal to me. Again, it's not a great thing. I just think I know how to tame it, and it's my superpower.
The thing that I get faced with a lot is I always think that there is a universe where Shamil would just say something a little bit differently, presented different information or approach this from a different angle, and would have gotten the deal. So I would always pressure myself as like, it's my fault. It's not that, obviously they don't need that kind of like service or app to do their work, but nothing wrong with me. I didn't push enough. I'm not good enough.
So I think teammates, your employees, your colleagues actually will see that, because I think that's visceral. Or like you can see when I lose a deal, I'm pissed, right? It's not just, but people can see that. And I think I'm hopeful that that's motivating, right? Because it isn't just some, it's okay. Like we lost the deal, on to the next one. Like everything is like the most important thing for me. And so I think that rubs off on others. By the way, when I see that in my co-founders and my employees, that excites me too. And I see this frequently in employees, whether they're, a product manager or a marketer or a sales rep. When the sales rep loses out on the deal, I can see people getting, upset and taking it personally. And that energizes me, right? That shows me that, they care about this thing. Like, I'm pissed off too. Like, let's do this together. When I see a marketer, run a campaign that didn't work as well as he or she would have thought, and they get pissed, I'm like, yeah, you should be pissed. Like, let's do this together. This is personal, right? And so I think others all see that too. And when you see somebody taking that amount of ownership, it's really, really contagious. Like people get excited when they see that in others.
And do you learn a lot of those things from the people you kind of met in the industry? Like there is this story with you spending some time with Floyd Mayweather and Justin Bieber on the island. Could you talk a bit about that encounter?
So I have a couple of absurd life stories. One of them is my encounters with Justin Bieber. So this is the most, it's one of three of ridiculous moments in my life. So I'm on my honeymoon in Bora Bora with my wife. And we're on a private island. Once you're there, you can't get off. By the way, it's the most beautiful place ever. We get there. There's like 12 couples there. And on a bike comes this blonde-haired kid. He gives me a high five, and I stop and I tell my wife, holy shit, that's Justin Bieber. Like I just high-fived Justin Bieber. We quickly realize, holy shit, Justin Bieber's here with us. It's a private island. There's literally 12 families. And he's there with Floyd Mayweather. And so, yeah. By the way, all this is on Instagram. You can fact check the dates. And so, the next day we go to the restaurant. There's only one on the island. We go to the restaurant and Justin Bieber's there and he's buying shots for everybody. And we're like, this is fucking amazing. We're taking shots with Justin Bieber. Like, this is the coolest thing ever. Then Floyd Mayweather comes with a ton of cash. They don't accept cash on the island. So I'm like, what are you doing? This is amazing. This is the greatest day of my life. And then we stay there. We drink with Floyd Mayweather and Justin Bieber. We stay there for lunch. We're still drinking. We stay there for dinner. He's just buying shots. It's amazing. He's performing karaoke at the bar. Next morning, we wake up and he's there again. And he's buying shots for everybody. And I'm like, this is the greatest thing ever. I have a bar story I can tell for the rest of my life as I'm doing here. And then day 3 comes and we wake up and we're like, dude, we gotta avoid Bieber. Like the guy's killing me right now. I can't. This is crazy. We've just drank for 48 hours straight. And so we go to the hotel bar and we're like, do not look at Justin Bieber. Like, ignore him. Do not look at him. Like, run. And so sure enough, he's like, shots for everybody. I'm like, no, ignore the Biebs. We're out of here. We're going snorkeling. Ignore the Biebs. And so that was the first time when I've rejected, first and last time that I will have rejected Justin Bieber in my life.
It's probably the only time he's ever been rejected.
So never say never. If I ever meet him again, I'm going to tell this story to him and he'll hopefully laugh at it. But this is a wild, wild event that I'll always remember.
Is there something special or unique to all of the famous people that you've encountered throughout your life? Like, do they have some intrinsic qualities that help them reach that level of success?
I think that the most successful people I've met or I've worked with have a true passion for their craft, right? At every step of the way, whether it's in the music industry, whether it's in finance and healthcare and tech, the most successful people aren't just going through the motions, right? They're maniacally obsessed with perfecting whatever it is that they're doing. And they're so obsessed because they have such a passion for doing, that thing. And it's at every single level, whether it's the most, junior person all the way to the most senior person. The most successful people just have this complete obsession about the thing that they're doing, right? And so in the music industry, the best songwriters and producers, they have an obsession with perfecting every single note and every single beat of the drum. They're just maniacal. If one hi-hat is off, it's catastrophe. They have to make sure everything is correct. In tech, the best people are just obsessed with building the product for their customers, and they'll just go through every single pixel to make sure that experience is the best experience for the customer. And I can keep on going, but you can't fake that obsession, right? You can't fake that. You really have to be passionate about whatever it is you're doing, because after a certain extent, if you're not obsessed, it just gets you're just going through the motions, right? And that's not how you're going to win. You have to show up every day with a pure obsession. And I'd like to think that I'm doing that today with Sesame. And I'm hopeful that people can say that when I was doing, when I was at Goldman or when I was at Relabel, I was doing the same thing. You don't have to do, you don't have to just be passionate about one thing for your whole life. In the moment when you're doing it, though, it has to be the one thing that you're obsessed and totally passionate about.
And has anything changed over the last maybe 5, 10 years once you were trying to find your true motivation in terms of what you want to do next? Maybe there's some parts of you that you've never knew existed that you've uncovered.
So I think a lot of this is being comfortable with the unknown, right? Like as I was thinking about my early career, at all points I wanted to have some North Star that I knew and that I was working towards, and everything I did was to get closer to that North Star. Right. And so when I was doing music, it was, I want to be a rock star. And so everything I was doing was, how can I become a rock star? Then when I was doing, at GS, is I want to be like the best client facing person. So everything I was doing was towards that. And I always had to have some North Star that I was aiming towards. I've become much more comfortable with the uncertainty of things and the unknown. And I think that's important, because as we build out, and specific to Sesame, but also other companies, like so much of it is the unknown of the unknown. As you put out some product or object into the world, you don't know how folks are going to react, right? You can't go into there saying, I need a North Star and everything we're going to do is going to be to get close to that North Star. You can have some idea, but once you put it out, it's the unknown of the unknown. Like, what happens? How are people going to use it? How are they going to react? And it's okay to not fully know. You have to have some instinct, but it's okay to not fully know. And I think the reason I've realized that's so important is because then you don't have any preconceived notions or biases going into it. You just follow what you're seeing. If you have preconceived notions or biases, i.e., here's my North Star and we have to get there, then you might miss the forest for the trees. You might miss things that are going on, whether it's in music or in technology. And so what I've really gotten good at is not having any preconceived biases, putting stuff out there, just seeing where it goes. How are consumers reacting to it? What's the feedback we're getting? Do they like this thing that we didn't think was going to work? Or do they hate this thing that we thought was going to work? Based on that, being very flexible with changing the direction you go in. Oftentimes, as a result, people end up liking this one feature that we didn't even think was going to be big. And then we'll say, there it is. That's that North Star. We're going to focus on that without, initially going in with a preconceived notion. And so, yeah, I think that's what I have gotten better at. I have to continue, obviously, getting better at many other things, but that's really the thing that I've changed between 10 years ago and now.
How do you want to be remembered? As what kind of person?
I'm quoting a bunch of great philosophers. Yeah. But as the great philosopher Dr. Dre once said, I just want to be remembered as the shit. So no, all jokes aside, I want people to think of me as yeah, that guy showed up every single day. That guy worked extremely hard, right? I want to be able to say that I built that. Right? I want to be able to say that I made that song, right? I built that team. I built that product, whatever it might be. I want people to remember me as, yeah, the guy always rolled up his sleeves. He always did the work. I don't need to be the world's biggest rock star, right? I don't need to have that feeling of I had in high school of everybody chanting my name, screaming, John. I don't need that. But I do want in the people in this, however small or big, the people I work with and interact with I want them to think of me as, yeah, that guy always showed up. That guy always rolled up his sleeves. That guy was the shit.
What are you most excited about currently?
So I think my current company, Sesame, we're now 7 years into this journey. And hopefully it's year 7 of our overnight success story. In that these companies, specifically marketplaces, take such a long time to build. And I don't think I ever appreciated that. And so at every step of the way, I've wanted to stop and quit. but I really feel strongly that we've found a turning point, and we're actually about to win. We wanted to disrupt the way people get and access healthcare. And for the first 6 or 7 years, that was kind of a pipe dream. Like, a lot of things were working, but a lot weren't. This is the first time where I confidently feel like, oh, I actually think we're about to change healthcare. And now, of course, that could also be another 10 years from now, but maybe it's only going to be 2 years. But it's the first time where I felt, oh, I don't think this is a pipe dream anymore. We're actually going to pull this crazy, crazy thing off, and we're going to do this. And so I'm most excited about actually seeing that through, right? And as I said, maybe that happens in 10 years, but maybe it happens in a year or maybe 2 years, but anything in between, I just know it's going to happen. We're going to be successful. We're actually going to disrupt healthcare. And so I'm most excited about actually doing the thing that we first set out and said we were going to do 7 years ago.
And what has been the catalyst for this change?
Like truly hard work, but also you gotta, I keep on coming back to this, time in the market is the most important thing. Just the ability for us to exist and survive. There have been a tremendous amount of ups and downs in venture, in healthcare. There was a pandemic in 2020. We've survived, right? We've existed, and existing and surviving has allowed us to iterate our product and continuously refining it to make it a better and better product to serve more and more customers. A lot of this is just withstanding the headwinds that exist, in venture, in healthcare, and we've withstood a ton of these headwinds. That has allowed us to iterate and make our product better and better and better. That has allowed us to continue to raise capital. And so now at this moment, I feel like we have a true, incredible, 10x experience product that our consumers, I can actively see them, that our patients just absolutely love. I use it, I can feel it, I know, and side note, the economics are working of the business. We're humming along. It's that moment where you just know in your gut and viscerally that it's going to work. Similarly to, I knew when I had to sell my label, just viscerally in my gut, I just realized this is not worth it. It's not going to be the success that I thought it was. I have to shut it down. The flip side of that coin is, in my gut and viscerally, I now know, oh, this is going to work. Like, Sesame is going to work. And so, I don't care about the punches that I'm going to take in the face. I'll quickly get knocked down. I'll come right back up because I know that it's going to work in my gut and viscerally.
You're like one of those people who, they tackle something crazy because they say, oh, this is going to be such a cool story to tell one day about how I've lived, what I've done. And you're full of those stories. Like, every single year of your life is probably something that one day, who knows? I was quite serious when I thought that maybe this is the story that we'll see on Netflix in limited series for 6 episodes one day.
I hope so. I don't think the story is over yet. So hopefully I'm still in, in chapter 6 of a 20 chapter book. But yeah, I think a lot of life is just showing up, right? Saying yes to many things, obviously saying no selectively, but just saying yes to many things, just showing up, doing the hard work, laying each brick at a time. The worst case, it doesn't work out, you get rejected. The best case, you have a fun, bar story to tell. So,
dude, that was such a fantastic session. The stories that you have, they're such an inspiration to any founders who are embracing this new world of AI, trying to start something, who don't know how hard it can be, who are trying to navigate that uncertainty. And well, to be honest, I'm just so happy that you've stood out into the light with all of the stories. And I think you've boiled a soup that is going to be the catalyst to give all the necessary nutrients to the new founders that are coming into the game. And you've spent quite a while brewing it.
Love it. Dude, I really appreciate this. I really appreciate the opportunity to tell my story. Really appreciate this platform. I hope folks found this helpful. If not, you're on my shit list. So,
and that's a pot.